Hi, everyone. This is David Patano with the Creative Clinician. Nice to have you with us June 9th. And happy to be with you to offer this education time about heartbeat music projects. And today, Bridget Sova, who taught me how to do heartbeat recordings, she's a music therapist in Lansing, Michigan. She'll be doing the presentation, and I'm just going to be chiming in here and there. So we're happy to have Bridget with us, and like to give a special shout out to Ashley and Matt Leotti, who administer all of this goings on. So they're real talented and helpful. So thank you to them, and happy Sunday to everybody. And I'm just going to talk for a minute here just to tell you about my experience with heartbeat music. And I do music therapy in Toledo, Ohio. I have a private practice, very busy with various populations, but for many years I've done a lot of hospice music therapy. And last summer, a social worker that I work with came up to me and said, "David, do you know about heartbeat music?" And I said, "No, I don't." And she said that her sister on a hospice in Lansing, the music therapist there offered her and the family this heartbeat music project. So, actually, one second, Ashley. I need to mute my phone, Ashley. Or Bridget, we good? How are we doing? All right. There we go. We'll get our tech things together here. So the social worker mentioned that Bridget did a beautiful job making a heartbeat project for their sister. And I didn't know what it was, so I got to hear Bridget's project, and it was beautiful. And one of the first things my coworker said to me is, we didn't know what to think about Bridget's offering, about having our loved one's heartbeat and having it turn into a song. But they knew the essence of it was going to be a keepsake for their family. So my coworker said that her, particularly, the thought of it while her loved one was still with them kind of took her breath away to think about it. But after the fact, she said they were just so happy to have this precious keepsake now for herself and her family, even to pass on over the years. So these are real impactful projects like that. And I just like to read you all one or two things, some responses that I've gotten from families the 4 or 5 months that I've done them. Here's one of them. It says, this is from the family member. "I can't thank you enough for the song you created for us. What an incredible gift. Hearing Mom's heartbeat combined with the imagery of the song touched our hearts in a deep way. It was like getting a glimpse into eternity. We are forever ever grateful for your skill and your thoughtfulness for giving us this part of Mom to enjoy and treasure forever." That's the kind of testimonials I've gotten. And Bridget, I'm sure you've gotten them over time a lot. And I'm just going to read the last line of another one because I want to just get Bridget going here. This is the end of a family member's note to me. It says, "I cried so hard listening to this because it made me feel like my dad was right there." So before I turn it over to Bridget, I'll just say this. Even though you heard what family members have said, and I told you the story about my coworker, still, these are not for everybody. And I'm even starting to do them in our neonatal ICU, where Bridget does them also. So it's not for everybody, but for those who do take advantage of our offerings with these heartbeat music projects, like you've heard from the family members, it's most often a cherished gift that we can offer families. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bridget Sova, and I'll chime in here and there. So enjoy.
Hi, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks, David, for that awesome introduction. It's really cool to hear the response that you're getting from your families. First, I just want to thank the creative clinician for putting this on. This has been a really great experience. And Ashley and Matt Leotti have been so great to work with. They're kind of our behind the scenes people. So thank you to them as well. Um, and I am extremely excited to talk about this topic today. It's a topic that has really helped me, I feel like, launch my career. It's been impactful for so many patients and families that I've worked with. I counted up the other day how many heartbeat recordings I've done, and I've been working for about 4 years now, a little bit over 4 years. And I've done about 400 heartbeat recordings. So that's quite a bit. And it's been really fun to be able to get to not only do these for my own patients and families, but share this experience with other music therapists. So I've really enjoyed getting to talk with people over the phone and teach people how to do this. And this is my first time really presenting on the topic. So I'm excited to give you all an opportunity to either learn how to do this for the first time, or maybe get an idea of how to use this in another way, or an idea of how to get that one thing that is bugging you about your heartbeat recordings fixed. I'm hoping that we can answer a lot of questions and have a really fun interactive session today. Thank you for giving up some of your time. I'm really excited to be here. So I wanted to start by saying I want this to be really interactive. So you'll see that you have a little chat box down on the bottom of your screen, the bottom right-hand corner. And so I just wanted to give you guys a chance to try that out really quick. So how about this? If you have already been doing heartbeat recordings in your area, please just type 2 letters into the chat box, just ME, just say me. Just type me and hit send. And I want to see who has been doing these already. How many people have been working on these? So I'll give you guys a chance to do that really quick. Ooh, okay. Awesome. So we've got at least 4 people who have already been doing these. That's so great. So you guys, please feel free to type into the box if there's something that I mentioned that maybe you have an idea about, or that you've come up with a really good way to do that differently than I am talking about. Please type it into the box. I would love to hear about that. Okay, so next question is going to be, if you work in pediatrics like me, so if you work mainly with kids and babies, type me into the text and hit send. I want to see how many people work with kids. Awesome. All right, so we got some responses for that. And I'm hoping that you guys can all see those too. I think that you can. So there's a few people who also work in pediatrics. That's great. I think that this intervention has kind of taken off a little bit in pediatrics, but it can definitely be used in so many other areas, pretty much anywhere. So if you work with adults or mainly adults, type into that box me, and I want to see who works with adults. You can even throw an exclamation point if you want to. That is optional. Okay, there's a couple. All right, so I think I saw about 5 people who work with adults. So that is so great. A lot of the examples I'm going to be giving are going to be people that I've worked with. So far that's mainly kids, but this can really be applied to your population, I promise. If there's something that I say that, maybe you're wondering how that can apply to you working with adults, please let me know. Your question or your idea about how that can be applied for adults. And last question, last but not least, I would love to know how many years you have been working in the field. So just type that number in. And if you happen to be a student or an intern who hasn't started yet, just type in I'm a student or I'm an intern. All right, we got 5 years, 2 years. Very cool. 12 years. Awesome. And an exclamation point. I like that. Okay, 1 year, 4 years. 2 years, 5 years, 6 months. Nice. Welcome. I'm a student. We love students. 7 years. Awesome. 13 years. It's great. Less than one. Awesome. Well, like I mentioned, 6 months. Cool. 3 years. Currently on hiatus now. That's awesome. 4 years. Great. So I'm loving all of these responses. Thank you so much for answering me. That helps me so much. Please feel free to type into the box throughout the presentation. So for those of you who are, in that 1 year, 6 months, maybe a couple years, I really do feel as though this intervention was a way that I was able to really sell myself as a music therapist. So I think that this could be beneficial for you beyond the point of just all of the wonderful things you're going to do for your patients. So kind of keep that in mind throughout the presentation. We're going to jump into the presentation here. So I'm going to put up my slides. You'll still be able to see me there in the corner. Okay, so I'll just basically go over very quickly what we're going to talk about today. We're going to do a general overview of heartbeat recordings, some of the history, things like that. Then we're going to go into some examples about heartbeat recordings and some explanation of how they are used in my setting and also in David's setting. And then we're going to go into the process. So I was hoping that today would be a really great time to actually share my screen on this webinar and show you exactly how I go through and edit out heartbeats, add the music, the whole 9 yards. For those of you who haven't had a chance to do it yet, I would love for you to leave and be able to do a heartbeat recording as soon as you get the equipment and you're on board. That would be awesome after this presentation. And then we're going to do some demonstrations of some more advanced techniques too. The handouts that I believe you were sent and are also on this page are really good step-by-steps of ways to do the heartbeat recordings, especially just the general. The more advanced techniques and some of the things that I've kind of figured out throughout my time doing these aren't really in the handout. So that's when you might want to get out your notebook and take some notes. But also feel free to reach out to us after if you have any questions about those more advanced techniques. And then finally, implementation into your own space. I know some of you are already doing heartbeat recordings in your space. If you're not, then this will be a great slide to be able to kind of get those wheels turning on how to implement. If you have already implemented this into your space, please feel free to type into the box and give some advice to those who haven't done it yet. Okay, next slide. So going into the history of heartbeat recordings, this technique is one that's really, really special to me. And I was extremely lucky enough to learn the technique from the very inventor of the heartbeat recordings himself. His name is Brian Schreck, and he is an outstanding music therapist. And I was just lucky enough to be able to be his intern. And when I was his intern, he had been doing the heartbeat recordings for a little while, so I got to kind of learn from him. But if you haven't heard of Brian Schreck yet, he's amazing. He did his undergraduate at Berkeley and then got his master's in music therapy at NYU under Clive Robbins. Now he works in the Norton Cancer Institute in Louisville, Kentucky, where he works with adults and teenagers who have cancer, and he does heartbeat recordings there. The why behind the project, so Brian and I talked a lot about this as he was teaching me how to do these. When he first kind of got this idea of heartbeat recordings, he was trying to think of ways for people who are no longer really able to interact, or maybe they're infants and so it's hard for them to interact, or maybe even, perinatal babies who are in utero, ways that we can still include these souls, these people, into a project that would make a lasting memory for their families. A lot of the individuals that he worked with through this, they were, maybe intubated and sedated, or they were, very, very young, too young to interact. And so he had to think of kind of a creative way to be able to still involve them into these projects. And one way that we can involve any person any human right up until the very, very last moment of their life is with their heartbeat, because that heartbeat is still there right up until the very end. And so that was one idea that Brian had, to record that heartbeat, use it into a song, let that person, that individual contribute to that project, and also give that family something that is tangible that they can always have and always remember that patient by. And so this really did start up with the perinatal population, so families who were pregnant with a baby who was diagnosed with something and was thought not to be able to survive past pregnancy. And so when these started, there was a lot of heartbeat recordings done with ultrasounds. And quickly that turned into using stethoscope recorders for babies who were born, maybe were in the NICU, and then quickly turned into using this for older kids and adults, all the way through the whole life process. This project can be done. Okay, so that was kind of the why behind the project, and the technique that has really grown into so much more, and we will talk a lot about that. But I wanted to tell you about a few things that Brian is currently doing. He's working on creating a website that will kind of just compile all of his amazing knowledge on this topic, and a bunch of resources for other music therapists. So please be looking out for that. It's not done yet, but he's working on that. And then the coolest thing that I am so super excited about is this documentary that Brian's working on. It's called The Beat of the Heart, and it is going to be this beautiful documentary about heartbeat recordings in Brian's work. And if you have not seen there's a promo video out for this, please, please, please write down that link underneath the photo, thebeatoftheheartmovie.com. Check it out. It is amazing. And you'll just realize, if you haven't met Brian, how great of a spokesperson he is for our field, and how this documentary is really, really going to move our field forward, I feel like. So please check that documentary out. Okay. So we're going to move into a few examples now. I wanted you to be able to hear some heartbeat recordings before we talk too much more about them, just in case you need an idea of exactly what those sound like. This first one that I'm going to play for you is, this is a patient who is 17 years old, and I'll let you hear the heartbeat first, and then I'll talk a little bit more about why this one sticks out in my head and why I chose this example as one of the heartbeats to play for you. Okay, so here it comes. Okay, So that one was a patient who, as I mentioned, 17-year-old boy. Um, you noticed that there was a little bit of heartbeat at the beginning, and then the song that the family chose was "You'll Be in My Heart" by Phil Collins. So hopefully you're able to recognize that. Um, and then I usually let the heartbeat come out at the end as well. So the reason why this one sticks out in my head is because this is a really special family. This patient was adopted, and the parents actually adopted several throughout their years as parents. They adopted several patients or several sons and daughters that had disabilities. And unfortunately, this was not the first time that they were losing a patient like this one who had just a lot of different disabilities and different things that he was born with that caused it to be hard for him to live a full life. And one thing that they told us when we were going to do the memory making for this patient was that, they had lots of handprints and hand molds and the different types of memory making things that hospitals had provided in the past for their other sons and daughters who had passed. And that those things, they just became harder for them because it was too hard to see them every day. So they ended up kind of putting them away, but then it became hard for them to know that those things were put away. And so they said no to all of the other memory making things, but when they heard about the idea of the heartbeat recording, they thought that it was amazing and it was this really cool idea. And so they really appreciated being able to have something in another form. So in that file form where they could put it onto their computer, onto their phone, listen to it when they were able to, and it was different than the other things that they had experienced in the past with memory making. Okay, so this next one that I'm going to play is of a patient who was 3 years old. And let's see. Oops. Here we go. This patient is really special because he actually was autistic as well as had cancer, and music was his way of connecting. So this is one of his favorite songs. right, so that one was "We're Going to Be Friends" by the White Stripes. Um, and so this next one, I was actually thinking we could play a little bit of a game of Name That Tune, because this is a patient who is a 4-year-old girl, and her parents weren't able to pick a song for her heartbeat recording. Her mom said, just play some of her favorite songs, and that's fine. But the thing was that this patient had a lot of favorite songs, and it was too hard for me to choose. So I did kind of a mashup of several different songs. And so what I was thinking that we could do is, as you're listening to this next heartbeat recording, when you hear a song that you know, go into the type box, the conversation box, and whoever types in the name of the song first and hits send is the winner. You're not going to win a prize, unfortunately, but you can give yourself a pat on the back. So if you hear a song, you recognize that song throughout this next heartbeat recording, there's actually 10 different songs. Go ahead and type it in. And I would be really impressed if somebody knew all of them, because some of them are a little bit out there. But we'll try this one next. Yes, a couple people said, "Do you want to build a snowman?" That's correct. Okay, this next one is tricky. I'd be really shocked if someone got it. That's impressive. I didn't think anyone would get this one. Okay, here's one that people will get. So that one was called Bicycle. Lori Berkman. Jingle bells! Nice job! job. That was Roar, Katy Perry. This one should be easy. Yes! Melody got it. Happy birthday. You guys got it. Oh, hard one. Really hard one. I'm gonna catch you! Yes! Multiple people got it! Lori Berkner. Good old Lori Berkner. I didn't think anyone would get that one either, so that was awesome. Oh, classic. Let It Go. Yes. You guys are correct. So here comes the next one that is going to be hard too. That was a quick one too. That was the, yes, Mommy Finger, where are you? Good job. How far I'll go? Very good. And then the very last one, which was also her very favorite song. Little intro here. Shake it off! Yes! Oh my goodness. That was like a three-way tie. Okay, so I'm gonna stop it here because I did do this one for just a little bit longer since it was her favorite song. But thank you guys for playing along with that fun game with me. I saw a couple comments about the, the nice smooth tempo of that and how you can work so many songs into just one heartbeat. And that's something that we'll talk about in a little bit is just, what if you don't have a tempo that's perfect for your song? But this one, it worked out really well, as you could hear, to kind of all those songs. And, some of them were a little bit slower than the actual song. Some of them were a little bit faster. But I was able to kind of work in with the tempo of it to make the songs at least recognizable for the family. And that was one of the families who ended up playing that at her funeral. So they used that as the song that played at the end as people were walking out. And so I think that the way that it's kind of a little bit of a longer song worked out kind of perfect in that situation. Okay, so very last one for our just beginning examples. This is a young patient. This was a patient who was only about 3 weeks old when we did this heartbeat recording. And you'll notice that at the beginning, he had an older sister who I believe she was about 3-ish, and she wanted to be part of the recording as well. And parents were all about that. They were like, yes, that's even more special if she's somehow a part of it. So I'm like, how do I include this 3-year-old into making this project? I was kind of thinking about having her sing the song that they chose. They ended up choosing House in the Woods by Tom Petty. So I'm like, that'd be a little bit hard to have a 3-year-old sing a Tom Petty song. I have a hard enough time recording 3-year-olds singing their own favorite songs sometimes. So teaching her a song, I was like, that's probably not going to work. So what we ended up doing was recording her voice singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, which was the song that she liked to sing to him. And then we go into the heartbeat recording. The other thing about this one is that you'll hear 4 different heartbeats at the beginning. We ended up recording the patient's heartbeat, the sister's heartbeat, mom's heartbeat, and dad's heartbeat. So you'll hear all 4 heartbeats in that order, and then all 4 heartbeats beating together at the same time. And then you'll hear the acoustic guitar version of the Tom Petty song come in. So I'll play that for you all.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
So here's the patient's heartbeat. Sister's heartbeat. Mom's heartbeat. Dad's heartbeat. Then all 4 heartbeats overlapped. So I'm also going to show you guys how I did this, but all 4 hearts beating at the same time. Okay, so you've heard a few examples of a few different types of heartbeat recordings. The reasoning behind them, these all 4 heartbeat recordings were for memory making purposes. Not that that's always the purpose of heartbeat recordings. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But you've heard kind of the general idea of heartbeat recordings. Now I want to talk a little bit more about actually the whole process of introducing the idea to the family and going into the rest of the project. So starting with introducing the idea to the family, this can be something that can be a little bit difficult. Especially when you have families who are processing so much emotionally. They're in really that hardest, worst time of their life, and we're trying to approach them in this space and have the right words. That can be really, really difficult. When I usually approach families, I would say that there's kind of two different options or situations that I'm asked to approach them for a heartbeat recording in. The first is when families are aware that end of life is approaching and they're ready to talk about memory making. And then the second experience or situation that I approach families in is one where they maybe are not ready to have that conversation. And so how can you kind of approach in these two different ways and appropriately and supportively offer them this really, really beautiful service that we want to offer them, but can be kind of hard. So I'll talk about both of these different types of situations and how I kind of do different things to approach these different families and meet them where they are. In the photo that you're seeing, this is a family who we were doing this intervention as more of a celebration. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But as you're looking at that, it might be a little confusing, like, oh, they all look like they're smiling and happy, and it doesn't really seem like what we're talking about. So I just wanted to mention that that was a patient who had heart surgery and was doing really well. So we were doing his heartbeat recording after his heart surgery. Okay, so in most cases, I feel like when I approach families, it is because the team is already doing some sort of memory making. And so in most cases, I'm able to approach them completely openly and talk about this as a way that they can remember their son or daughter, their brother or sister, whoever happens to be in the room. And so when I approach them, I try to remember something that a friend of mine who experienced the loss of a child told me. She told me throughout her experience that she really, really did appreciate all of the different medical staff that were coming in and out of the room. She felt very supported by everyone. And she said the one thing that, she wanted to hear when someone came into the room was, their purpose for being there. She was happy to have someone come in and talk with her, but she kind of wanted to know, what the purpose was and why they were there right away, rather than, kind of getting to it eventually. So now when I approach families who are in this, they're starting their bereavement journey, I try always to introduce myself in a way that tells them my purpose for being there right away. So what I'll do is I will try to find a space where I can sit down. There's a movement within the hospital that I work in that is called Commit to Sit. And what it means is when you have to have a conversation with a family that's going to be emotional or taxing for them in some way, sit down, be on their level. And I think it's such a very, very powerful thing that we don't really realize makes such a difference, but it does. So I first try to get on their level, sit down to talk to them. And then my exact wording is usually, hi, so-and-so and so-and-so. I always find their names ahead of time so I can approach them by first name. And what I'm thinking in my head right now, so you guys can visualize this, is two parents of a patient, a pediatric patient. I'll say, hi, so-and-so and so-and-so. My name is Bridget. I'm the music therapist here at the hospital. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I did want to offer you something that I think is very special. And then I say, right here, I have a stethoscope recorder, and I'll hold up the little recorder I'll bring with me. And I'll say, with this, I can record heartbeats. And I would like to offer you a recording of the patient's heartbeat, say that patient's name. And then what I can do is I can make it into a song that would be very special for you. And I'll explain right away that it only takes about 10 seconds to record the patient's heartbeat. And then the only other thing that I need from you all is a song that's special to you in some way. So the only requirement of the song is that it is special in some way. So once I have that that kind of introduction out of the way, I try to really engage with that family and read their cues of how they're feeling. This type of intervention, kind of like David said, it's not for everybody, but I have experienced that it is for most people, at least that I come in contact with. Most people are very excited about it, or they're at least very appreciative of this intervention. So once I've kind of introduced that, I will quickly record the patient's heartbeat and then talk to them a little bit more about song choice. Sometimes families want to hear like what an example, they'll say, like, what type of songs do other families choose? I can give them some examples, but then I'll always revert back to my little phrase that I've kind of developed over the years, that is, the only requirement is that it's special to you. It doesn't have to be a song that I know. It doesn't have to be a song that is for babies. It doesn't have to be a song that the patient loved. It doesn't have to be a song that you loved. It has to be special to you in some way. And a lot of times it is your favorite song or that patient's favorite song, but I've had families who picked their wedding song for their baby's heartbeat recording, or their child's heartbeat recording. So just kind of reverting back to that, saying that the only requirement is that it's something that's special to you, is a good way to help families to feel comfortable saying a song choice to you. And after saying that, I've had families who have offered up suggestions of songs that maybe they wouldn't have thought of before. And I will actually show some examples of some kind of off-the-wall heartbeat recordings I've done in the past, ones that you wouldn't expect to be, songs that you wouldn't expect to be done as a heartbeat recording. So I'll show you some of those. But that is how I usually will approach family who is in that end-of-life bereavement type of phase. But then I think the most important part, and Brian would definitely want me to say this to you, is that it doesn't stop there. This technique really is not the product. The product isn't the music therapy technique. It's the process of working with this family and doing this technique together, or even offering other music therapy services, because you kind of got that foot in the door with your offering of the heartbeat recording. So a lot of times what I'll say is, once we're done with the recording, they've offered a song to me, I'll say something along the lines of, you know what, I've actually got my guitar right outside the door. Would you like for me to play a little bit of just soft music for you guys right now, or sing a few lullabies or a few songs to your patient while I happen to be here? And sometimes they'll say yes, sometimes they want their privacy, and that is totally fine. But I think just the fact that I offer that and that that's an option for them is really important. Oftentimes I'll even say, if you like your privacy, if you want your privacy right now, that will not hurt my feelings one bit, but I just wanted to let you know that this is also an option. So that's the first type of a way that I'll approach the family. The second way is when families are not really ready to think about memory making just yet. And this can be kind of tricky. In most cases, I would say that this is because families, they are still holding on to that hope, and they're not ready to, quote, give up on the medical interventions that will continue their child's life. But the nurses have come to me and said, this really could happen at any moment, so we need this heartbeat recording. The other time that this happens is when a patient is probably going to survive and maybe go home for a little while, but we know that the prognosis for this specific diagnosis is not very good. So where I'm from, not all hospice organizations have music therapists on staff. And so this is one way that I can still give the family this intervention without actually following them at home. So I will approach the family just by saying something along the lines of, um, you know, hi, I'm Bridget. I'm the music therapist here. And your nurse was thinking that I should offer you something that is a really cool intervention that I do. And then I'll kind of launch into the same thing that I say before. I have this stethoscope recorder. I have this, and just saying, this is a really cool intervention that I do. Don't really have to talk about that this is a good way to remember your son or daughter. Usually, families, they really don't question me too much on this. And then I can go into working with the family. And in these situations, I really think that it's even more important to get in with that family and build that rapport, because they're going to have to walk through this journey of, going through all of the stages of realization of their child's ending prognosis. And you can be there because you've built that rapport from the beginning. So you can help them walk that journey. I want to talk about a few other things on this slide, but we also want to take a 10-minute break here in order to let you guys get up, stretch your legs. I'm going to do the same. So we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then I will see you again at 2 o'clock. All right, we're back. Okay, so I'm going to kind of speed right along since we want to make sure that we get through everything today and have some time for questions at the end. So jumping right back into what we were talking about, families may be in these very different places when you're offering these heartbeat recordings to them. So try your best to get as much information ahead of time and really just kind of read the room as you're offering this. And be a really good reflective listener in this moment as you are talking with these families. We're going to talk a little bit about patient information, patient protected information, and release forms. So a heartbeat recording technically is not patient protected information. No one can identify someone by the sound of their heart. So in that case, we are technically able to record heartbeats without getting a parent release or a patient release signed. That being said, if you are wanting to do this to be extra safe, if you're wanting to use your heartbeat recording in a presentation or something like that, or if there are other memory making things going along with this, and you can add heartbeat recordings to a checklist when you are having parents sign, then that's a really good way to be able to get that release form. But I did meet with our legal team at the hospital. Technically, a heartbeat does not count as patient protected information. That being said, what we do at our hospital is we've included heartbeat recordings as a little checkbox in the memory making list for parents to sign. I would rather parents only have to sign one form in this type of a situation. And so if we do happen to get a bit of the patient's voice in the recording, which is protected information, then this just kind of covers us. So our child life team, they do photos, they do molds and other things that actually would give away a patient's identity. And so what they do is they have to get it signed. So we include heartbeat recordings as a checkbox there. And if you are wanting to include it in a presentation, I would just have another different form that includes the fact that you are going to use this for other people to see, just because it is such a personal thing for these families. But that being said, I have gotten a lot of releases signed for this type of a thing, and just explain that I'm going to teach other people how to do this technique, and families have been very receptive to it. Moving forward, song choice. What if families don't come up with a song? That's okay. I always tell them, I know it's a really hard choice. I don't know if I would be able to come up with a song right now to be my special song. So I understand that that's hard. And I give them some time to tell their nurse if they just come up with one later. Also, if a family does not choose a song, or maybe things are happening really quickly and it's just not the right time to really push them to choose something, then what I'll end up doing is just playing a little bit of acoustic guitar improv to the heartbeat. And then when I send them that heartbeat recording, I'll include in my note that they should feel welcome to contact me and tell me a special song, and I would be more than willing to re-record that heartbeat recording for them. Or when I'm calling to follow up, I'll see if they have had a song that has come to their mind. But the improv is always a good option. It even becomes like a little bit more unique because it's something that's kind of made up right on the spot that goes right with the heartbeat recording. So those are good options. Like I mentioned before, involve the family in the process, even if it's as simple as coming back to them when you've edited out the heartbeat and saying, hey, I'm not done with it yet, but I did edit out the background noises. Do you want to hear the heartbeat now without all of those background noises? And then coming back to them once you have recorded the song, or showing parents what you're doing with the editing. Some of them are really interested in all of that. So feel free to try to include them whatever way possible. That just makes it even better. So we are going to...
I'm hearing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
We're going to move on to the next phase. And I'm wondering why my speaker is playing a song. Hopefully you guys can't hear that too.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
We're going to move on to the next slide.
Hey, Bridget.
Which is going to talk a little bit about the different equipment that you need to do heartbeat recordings. And I know David was interested in popping in here and talking a little bit about his experience. For me, what I'll use, oh, we can't hear it. Okay, let's see if I can figure out why we're getting some songs in here.
There it's done.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay.
We good?
So sorry about that. I am not sure what happened. That just started playing out of nowhere. So
Bridget?
Hopefully this is much better, but thank you for typing into the box that you could hear that song that was coming through. If there's something that, I think I was right in between going slides, so I hope that you were able to catch everything from my previous slide. But if there was something that you'd like me to repeat, please let me know. Okay, so we're going to go on to talking about heartbeat recording equipment, and also taking the recording, a little bit about infection control, and then we're going to go into editing the heartbeat. So for me, I use what we kind of refer to as like the makeshift heartbeat recorder, which is, oh, here comes David, I think. But it's just made out of two different pieces of equipment, which is a stethoscope recorder, and it's specifically called a Smart Lav lapel mic. And this is also in your handout, which, by the way, sorry, I forgot to mention this earlier. Now is a really good time to click at the top. There's a green bar above the slides and download those handouts, because Ashley and Matt are going to put the evaluation on there at the end and the little post test, so you can download that after. So they have to kind of take that down in order to put the next part up for you to download. So go ahead and click to download those handouts if you can right now. Now is a really good time to do that. Okay, we're going to see if David can join in. There he is.
Can you hear me? All right. Bridget, I just wanted to mention before you leave the song choice section, that one thing I did in a NICU experience was I involved one of the siblings, and a 4-year-old sibling whose parents identified that the sibling affectionately called the baby, the little baby brother, the patient, had some affectionate name for the baby and had some things to say. So I did a little songwriting exercise with them with some music as our music therapy session evolved around the project. And we ended up writing some words from the sibling that I utilized for a portion of the song for the project. So that was a nice way of covering the song choice area, but even being creative and allowing family members to be involved. And another thing that I haven't done yet, but I would not hesitate to do, is, because I've done this in my hospice work with adults, similar to this, where if working with the family over time, if it's identified or it comes up that maybe a cousin or another sibling or even a parent plays an instrument, to have them be part of the recording of the music. If they played, let's say a little young sibling played clarinet in the band, that they could, even if they're just starting out, play a song that they're working on in band, but add that to the recording. And so just to involve family members like that, writing words. If any family members or or young family members sing in a choir or just sing or just precociously just love to sing, they could be part of the recording also, just add to the song choice and the uniqueness of the recording. So I just wanted to mention that.
Awesome. That's such a good point. I think that any way that, you know, we can involve the family members into this process is just going to make it so much more special, including or along with, you know, having them add some of the music. Even very simple way to include family is having a sibling or even a parent hold the chest piece of the stethoscope over the heart. That's something that they will always remember. It seems kind of small, but involving them in whatever way that you can is going to be very impactful throughout their memory of this process. Okay, so going into the equipment again, so the makeshift heartbeat recorder is on your handout. It's the first one listed. That's what I use. It's got a Rode lapel mic called SmartLav lapel mic and a stethoscope. And all you have to do is chop the stethoscope tube about a couple inches from the chest piece and then stick the recorder or the microphone right in there. And the microphone will come with like a little it's like a pop filter over the top of it. You can just pull that right off and then you can stick that right in. It fits really well. And that SmartLav one is one of the only ones that I've ordered that actually fits in there. And so that's why that's a good one. And then I think that David also had an idea as far as microphone for the stethoscope recorder. So I think he might pop back in here really quick.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to say, it seems to me that our attendees today, maybe half of you have experience with doing heartbeat projects, so you have a microphone. But what I'd like to say to the students and to those who are listening to this for the first time, who do not have this equipment, I would encourage you, especially on the heels of this information, having it fresh in your mind, being excited about it, enthused about it, is to, with maybe GarageBand or another application, or even with a real hand drum that you have around, a real drum, get a metronome out. You know, a resting adult heart rate, let's say, is 62 to 64, let's say. Sometimes there's 70s. Baby's heart, you know, preemie babies are in the high 160s, the low 160s. So everything in between. Just get a heartbeat going with a drum sound, you know, boom, 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 boom. Put that on a recording. Put it even on your voice recording application of your phone, and try to play some songs to a simulated heartbeat even before you own this equipment. So you can even evaluate if you want to continue down this road to offer it to your facility. If you have to do an in-service to get equipment paid for, this is a good way. You can just do a mock, you know, recording of it. But you can even get real drums, you know, or an application on one of your audio workstations that sound quite a bit like a heartbeat recording. You could probably go on YouTube and find heartbeat recordings, you know, probably, and just grab some of those even before you own this equipment. So I just wanted to encourage you to do that.
That's a really good idea. I wish that I would have had a chance to practice before I really jumped in doing this. So great advice from David. Definitely try that out if you are new to this technique. And okay, so once you've got those two equipment pieces, the next piece that you would need is something to record it onto. So for me, I use Apple products at work. So we have a MacBook computer, and we also have a couple iPads. And one thing that I have added to our collection is a little iPod Touch. And so I've kind of just slowly downsized from using the laptop computer to an iPad to an iPod Touch. And the reasoning for that is because I go into a lot of very small spaces. Sometimes I'm fishing the recording through an isolette and different things like that. And so just having that onto a very small device is very helpful. even a phone. You can use a phone to record these. Definitely, make sure that when you're picking up possibly voice and other things, you want to make sure that that's a protected device through your work. But once you record that heartbeat, you are able to either have it right there on the computer if you're using a computer, or I just airdrop it onto my computer, transfer it in some way, and then you'll have it ready to edit. When you're taking the recording, though, a few little pieces of advice would be, number one, sometimes it's helpful to have an extra stethoscope on you. And so this could be even just a disposable stethoscope that you get out of the clean holding of a hospital, or it could be an extra stethoscope that you order, because sometimes it can be really helpful to listen to the patient's heartbeat ahead of time and find a good spot. If you don't have a stethoscope to use, though, grab the nurse, grab somebody who is on the medical team who could find that heartbeat for you. Sometimes it's just a nice way to include them in the whole process and build that rapport with the staff too. But having a good spot for that heartbeat is always, always helpful. If that's not a possibility, try to find that just left of the sternum a little bit, and that's usually the best spot to pick up the heartbeat. Other than that, just a quick note on infection control. I think that it's nice to meet with your infection control team before you start implementing this, because there are some worries about just using those devices in lots of different patient rooms. I have used these with just the alcohol wipes and the bleach wipes over and over and over again, and that's one reason why I kind of switched to the iPod Touch instead of the computer, because I was worried about getting the computer completely wet all of the time. But wiping down in between every single use, I like to do it like right in front of everybody so that they see that I'm doing that, even though it is a more expensive iPod Touch. I'm getting it completely wet with that cleaning solution, and I haven't really had any problems with that so far, so it's worked out all right in the past. And then the next part that we get into is editing the heartbeat. And so for this, let's see really quick. Okay, I think that was a little, I think David's gonna say something really quickly here. Right, David?
Thanks, Bridget, for letting me continue to barge in here. I'm just adding things that are of my experience that just to supplement what people's possibilities can be. And Bridget mentioned using the computer, and she uses now an iPod Touch. I just wanted to mention, in my experience, what I just actually use is my voice recorder on my phone. So when that is recorded, just those of you who would use that in that 3.5 inch or 1/8 inch jack in the picture of the stethoscope there, that fits in, the headphone jacks of phones. And actually a lot of phones are not coming with them, but my phone still does. So if you do record it in this way onto your phone, what I've found that I have to do is that when it's recorded, it's a WAV file, WAV. So on my app store on my phone, I just got a conversion application, and I just convert that WAV file to an MP3, which takes 2 seconds. And then I email that MP3 under the share functions. I email that heartbeat that's been converted into an MP3. I email it to myself, and then that is sitting on my computer. Then when I go to do the project, I just import that into my recording application. So I just wanted to mention that if you go that route on a phone, you have to convert it to an MP3. And then I email it to myself, as I said. So that's that.
Awesome. I also noticed that someone had a question about what type of application that we use when we're recording. So I know David uses voice memos a lot of the time, and that has worked out really, really nicely for me as well. I use voice memos sometimes. Most of the time I actually use GarageBand on the iPod Touch. And the reason why I like that is because the way that I have it set, it just kind of automatically stops after about 10 seconds, which is the perfect amount of recording for me. So I don't have to fumble to stop the recording once I hit the start button. Little things, but they add up in the end. Do you notice a sound quality difference between the apps? I have not, honestly. Between Voice Memos and GarageBand, I've kind of gotten the same type of sound quality in my recordings. Someone else is typing too. These are great questions. Thank you for adding in your questions. Okay. And then David's going to pop in really quick.
And Bridget mentioned using GarageBand. That's a digital audio workstation, a DAW application that computers have. I have that on my Mac. I'm talking to you on a Mac computer, and I have a Mac laptop. But I was telling Bridget that for years and years, my digital recording studio application is on a PC. And I use Steinberg Cubase, C-U-B-A-S-E. Some of you have heard of Pro Tools, Ableton Live. Logic is the higher level Apple application for recording. So it doesn't matter what you use, but some of you had a question about applications, and you can use any of these. And it's just a matter of what you're used to. I have worked in GarageBand, but since I record so many other recording projects with Cubase that I'm used to, that I've used for 10 years or more, I just throw it in there and use it because I'm used to that. So whatever you're used to, and all these things, good news for all of us, all these things are becoming lower priced than ever. So that's a good thing. Technology prices get lower. That's good.
Okay, so I also noticed a message from Bobby Joe. So it's saying that this person uses ThinkLab stethoscope recorder, and this is a really, really great recorder. Seems to be sensitive with extra sounds at the slightest movement of the stethoscope. I actually don't have a ThinkLab stethoscope, but Brian uses that one. So in his experience, that one has been better for picking up adult heartbeats versus pediatric heartbeats. I don't have as much experience with knowing exactly advice on the ThinkLab stethoscope recorder. I did end up buying an Echo stethoscope recorder, which is another digital version, which I've had a little bit of difficulties with. So it has worked really, really well, but sometimes it's easier for me to stick with what I know best, which is the makeshift one. But I will say that Brian mentioned to me that with adults, it can be hard to pick up the heartbeat with this makeshift one. So a digital stethoscope recorder might be the better way to go with that. Yeah, keep chiming in on these different ideas. I'm sorry I can't really help you out as much with the ThinkLab stethoscope recorder, but I would say that maybe recording a little bit of a longer time so that when you do have those slight movements and those sound bursts, you at least can cut those out of your recording. And so with me, when I have a recording of a heartbeat that is on a vent or is on something that I know I'm going to have to cut some of the sound out, I just try to record a few extra recordings or a little bit longer so I could at least have one piece that's good enough for me to loop. So that's my best advice for you right now. But let's jump into some editing. Oh, I think David is going to pop in here.
And one quick thing just about what was just said, that I have the recording setup that Bridget has, and I have done more projects with adults. And what I've found, what I've had to do, because a lot of adults, they'll have heart issues or a diminished sounding presence with their heartbeat. What I do is I record 2 20-second or 30-second blurbs, and when I throw that on my studio, I hunt around for the most even, distinct chunks, and I'll cut that 10 seconds up and use that 10 seconds and loop that. So without having maybe an optimal setup, and I'm really glad to hear about this ThinkLabs product. I'll even look into that because I do more adults, at least at this time. but it's good to know about that. But what I've done when I haven't been able to get such a robust sound, I'll do a longer heartbeat, then I'll hunt for that section that works well for 10 seconds that I can loop.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to jump into actually taking a look into GarageBand here. I'm going to use my stethoscope recorder to record my own heartbeat, and then we're going to try to edit it. So we'll see how this goes. You all will be able to hear the heartbeat once I unplug my stethoscope recorder.
Okay, so the first thing we are going to do is pull up GarageBand. A lot of times I'll just type GarageBand into this search bar here, and then you want to select an empty project. And then this audio one is the one that you want when you're going to record. Later on, when you're adding an instrument, you may want to choose the piano option, the MIDI keyboard, if you're using a MIDI instrument, but for now we're just going to use this microphone. Create. Then I'm going to take my stethoscope recorder and plug it in just with the aux jack, like the normal headphone jack, but you stick your recorder in there. And now I am going to record my heartbeat. Okay, so let's listen to how that sounded. So you can hear some pretty clear heartbeats there. So I'm just gonna, for this purpose, just find one clear heartbeat. So there's a pretty good one. So you want that first higher sound and then that second lower sound, so that ba-da, ba-da. So here's one that sounded pretty good. I'm going to move my cursor to the spot where I want to snip my track. Then I use the shortcut Command T. You can also go up to Edit and then Split Regions at Playhead. That would do the exact same thing. Then I'm going to come over here and split it after the heartbeat. So Command T again. Then I'm going to select that little heartbeat that I just snipped out of there, and I'm going to do Command C to copy back to the beginning. Command D will make a new track to duplicate the track. And then Command V will paste it. So here I've got my new clipped heartbeat, and then I have the original heartbeat up here. Usually I will just keep my original heartbeat up here the whole entire time and just mute it, but it's always good to have that to go back to in case you need it, which has happened to me a bunch of times. I've found a heartbeat that I thought was going to sound great, and then I snip it out, I loop it out, and then I don't really like it, so I have to go back to find another heartbeat or section of heartbeats. So what I'm going to do here is loop this by moving my cursor over the top. Down here I'll give you a different option, until I see that little loopy arrow, and then drag it on out. Pretty far. And then I can listen to what this sounds like. Okay, so we've got a pretty good heartbeat there. But I've got this like extra sound in the background. And then I've got kind of a weird sound along with one of the heartbeats too. Almost like a little clicking. So I'm going to try to use what's called the EQ or the equalizer and get some of that out. So you can come up here to this little turny knob and click that. That's already selected for me. And then I come down here to EQ, and I'm going to pull some frequencies in the sound down or eliminate some of the frequencies, and then I might even pull some of the frequencies up. The heartbeat is a very low frequency, so a lot of times what I end up doing is pulling the higher frequencies in the sound out or removing those frequencies to try to eliminate sounds other than just the heartbeat. And then sometimes I'll be pulling these low frequencies up in order to enhance the sound of the heartbeat. So let's give this a try. Okay, so I was able to get that clicking out, but now my heartbeat is kind of quiet. So what I'm going to do is raise this low frequency. You can hear that's pretty loud. So I don't really want to do it that much. But that seems to sound pretty good. So now I have a heartbeat that is looped out. It's clear. You want to make sure that you're not popping into the red when you transfer it over to iTunes, because it will auto equalize the sound, and if it thinks the sound is too loud, then it will automatically make it the sound very quiet. So before you send it over to iTunes, what you want to do is just make sure that you have your volume control set to a spot where there's no red. So the next thing that I would do would be add some music to this heartbeat. So I will go back to my slides now and talk to you about that for a little bit.
We're going to talk about adding the music now. So I know that this is a part where David has a lot of experience with adding different types of music to the heartbeat recordings. And so I know he will pop on as well to talk about this. But equipment for adding music. Basically, if you want to go the bare basics, then really all that you need if you're using a computer is a pair of headphones. What you could do is plug in your headphones, listen to that heartbeat, grab your guitar, grab your piano, and record right from the microphone of your computer as you're playing. And there you go. That would work out just fine. The problem there is that you have to be in a really quiet space because you're going to get all of the background noise as well. But if you have a really quiet space, then that works out just fine. One way to combat some of that background noise problem would be to get, if you're using guitar, an electric acoustic guitar and then an iRig and a cable. You could plug it right into your computer. You could also use a MIDI keyboard if you are interested in using keyboard. Let's see, I see a comment now that I couldn't see before. One of my coworkers recommend looking at the visual analyzer and matching the EQ to the shape of the heartbeat. Oh, wow, that's really interesting. I have not heard about doing that before, and so I'm definitely going to look into that. The visual analyzer and matching the EQ to the shape of the heartbeat. Okay, that is a little bit over my head. Sounds like your coworker has been doing this for a while or is really good at it. But yeah, that's really interesting. That seems like that would be a great way to go about it if you're able to really find those frequencies of the heartbeat ahead of time rather than just kind of like, as I'm doing, like listening as I pull different things down. Over my head too. Okay, good. I'm not alone. But yes, that's great advice. So everyone else should look into that too, for sure, and as I am going to do. Yes, so talking about other things that you can use to record the heartbeats, David is going to pop in here really quick and talk about that as well. So I'll let him jump in. Okay, so we're running into a little bit of technical difficulties that way as well, but we're going to get that all figured out so David can give you guys some ideas as well. But while we're figuring that out, I'll talk a little bit about the different equipment that I use. So I use a electric acoustic guitar to do the like background kind of like finger picking accompaniment of the song. And then what has been easiest for me has been to plug in a MIDI keyboard and use that to do the melody line. Then what I'll do, a little sneaky, is change the MIDI keyboard to sound like a guitar so that it all kind of sounds cohesive. I still will play some melody lines on my guitar if they're easier melody lines, but for me, keyboard is easier for the melody line aspect of it, and so using the MIDI keyboard and then changing it to a guitar sound has worked really, really well for that. We've already talked a little bit about tempo, and I showed you how to change the tempo on the heartbeat with my heartbeat sound. So basically when you're doing your heartbeat recordings, you might fall into the same trap that I've fallen into a couple times, especially when I was first starting. Which is you'll hear that heartbeat is like a butta, 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 butta. And what happens, for me at least, is I wanted to like swing the song a lot. I know one of the first ones I did was Roar by Katy Perry, and it was like, the eye of the tiger, the fighter, dance through the fire, cause I am a champion. And I like listened to it afterwards and I'm like, what am I doing? This is so wrong. And so one way to kind of combat that is to really focus on like one of the beats and tap your foot to that one beat, not both beats. Let's see, do you ever suggest playing the songs completely on the piano? Absolutely. Whatever your instrument that you're comfortable with is, go for it. And yeah, I think that's a great idea to give patients and families the option too. There's been a few songs that I've been requested to do that are mainly piano songs. And so I've asked, like, I know the piano is a really big part of this song. Would you like for me to play it on the piano instead of what I usually do, which is guitar? And families will be like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. I had one patient who really excelled on the piano, and so when I ended up doing his heartbeat recording later on, I decided to do it on piano just as kind of like a little in honor of him and all of his piano experience. So that's a really, really great suggestion, and I say use whatever instrument is most comfortable for you. So I know that once David is able to, he is going to pop up on your screen, and feel free to do that whenever you're able to, David. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about using voice versus instrumental, just instrumental music, because my main instrument actually is voice. And I'll usually tell everyone, like, use what instrument is your best one. And for me, I haven't used my voice as much on heartbeat recordings, And the first reason for that is just because Brian is really great at guitar. And when he was doing them all on guitar. I love the way that they sounded. And so I just started doing them all on guitar. The other thing that I've noticed is that there's something about when someone is singing on a recording that people kind of focus on the person singing a little bit. And so I just don't want to take away from the star of the song, which is definitely the heartbeat. But that being said, there have been times where people have suggested that I do use the lyrics with the song because the lyrics really mean a lot to them. So sometimes I'll even ask if it's a song that has really powerful lyrics. Recently, it was Eagle's Wings was suggested, and I was like, I know that that song has extremely powerful lyrics. Would you like me to sing on it, even though normally I would just play the guitar? And so that family was like, absolutely, we definitely want the words with it. So it's really preference, not just your preference, but also the family's preference. But most of the time, what I will use is a guitar and then a MIDI keyboard, turn it into guitar music. But I think piano music is just as beautiful, and use your voice too if you want to go for it. I have a coworker who sings on almost all of them, and they are absolutely gorgeous recordings. So it is really, really up to you. Okay, let's see if we've got some things figured out. You know what? This is actually our 10-minute break coming up, which might be a good time for us to kind of figure out some of these technical difficulties that we've got going on. So why don't we take a 10-minute break? I will see you all at, let's say 3:02. And we will hopefully be back with all of our technical difficulties figured out by that time. But thank you all, and we will see you in about 10 minutes.
Hi, everybody. I'm just going to start in on this section here. I want to just mention something before we had that little glitch, touch on some things. When Bridget was talking about editing the heartbeat and then having that heartbeat to put the music over, a couple things that have helped me. First of all, I do this most often is once the heartbeat is on my recording system, I'll identify the beats per minute. I'll identify the tempo. Then I'll actually get my metronome, and I have an application on my phone, a metronome, and I'll match that beat, and I'll practice the song that the family chose with the metronome instead of trying to do it with that heartbeat, and it saves me some recording time and tech time. So that's one thing I do just as a rehearsal issue. And another thing that I've done too, and I told Bridget this, is, you saw with EQing the heartbeat that the heartbeat is low frequencies, low. And one of the first ones I did when I was trying to record the song with that, following that heartbeat tempo, it was difficult because I play guitar using a lot of bass notes, so I was having a hard time keeping with the tempo. So what I did is I made myself another audio track, and then I clapped with the heartbeat first so I could really focus on the tempo. So I had that high-pitched tempo of the heartbeat. So then when I recorded my instrument, I had that high pitch to follow, which was much easier than trying to follow that lower, harder to hear, low frequency heartbeat. And then whatever else I did to finish the song, I just muted or erased that clap track. That was just a dummy track to follow along. And then one other thing too, it was mentioned earlier that, Bridget mentioned that once you get somebody's heartbeat, we're often locked into that tempo for the most part. So all songs that the family might pick don't exactly go along with that heartbeat. So one thing that it's helped me to have this metronome to record with is, let's say, I'm just going to do this totally by the seat of my pants here. Hopefully I can do it real quick. Let's say the tempo is this. And let's say the family chose You Are My Sunshine. I'm just going to do this again by the seat of my pants. You could do it this tempo. You are my sunshine, of course, that's right with the tempo. Another option then, if that tempo didn't work with the song, I have the option of doing it halftime. You are my sunshine. Make it halftime, and that would even lend itself to a more arpeggiated accompaniment. So I just wanted to give you those things that I've done to help some songs and some tempos work, give us some different options. Okay, Bridget.
All right. Thanks so much, David. That is super helpful. I'm definitely going to tell my interns the clapping trick for clapping along with the heartbeat. I think that's brilliant. So awesome. Next, I'm feeling kind of brave, so we're going to try to screen share again. You guys with me? We can do this. We can do this. Okay, we're going to screen share. And we're going to talk about recording the song with the heartbeat.
Okay, so we're going to add some music to a heartbeat recording here. This is a heartbeat that I have already edited out. It's another one of my heartbeats. So we've got this here. Sounds like this. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is loop this out, and I want to know how long I'm looping it based on time, not necessarily the beat number, which is up here. So what I can do is go to this little drop down here and click time, and then I'll know how long my heartbeat is looped out for. So right now it's a little over a minute, maybe a minute and 10 seconds or so. So my song might be longer than that, So I'm just going to drag this out farther than I need it to be. So now I know I'm past 4 minutes here. My heartbeat is definitely not going to be longer than 4 minutes, but we'll be able to pull that back once we record the music part of it. But there's nothing worse than running out of your heartbeat recording as you're recording the music. Then you're like, so hard to stay on the beat after that. So I always drag it out longer than I think I'll need. Okay, so then I'm going to do track, new track, and I'm going to use guitar this time. So we're going to select the audio microphone. These two you won't really ever need to use. It's really between your MIDI instrument and your guitar or other instrument that you want to use the microphone to record. Create. So now I can see that the internal microphone is picking me up because this green bar is jumping when I talk. So when I strum my guitar there, I see the line go up too. So that's a good way to test it, to make sure that you've got the right input selected as far as your audio recording goes. Then we are going to add some music. So normally I would say plug in headphones here and listen to the heartbeat through your headphones, record your guitar through the internal speaker so that that speaker isn't hearing the heartbeat come through your computer speaker and then picking it back up on the microphone. But for our purposes today, I am just going to record right along with the heartbeat. It might sound a little jumbly, but that's okay for today. All right, so I'm going to hit record here. Okay, so I'm going to stop that and start it back over. It looks like I've got my volume bar way down here, so I'm going to move that up. Sometimes I'll add in a little fade here. So I just pushed A, or you can click this, and then you've got your little volume bar. You can add another little spot to move it around by clicking on the bar and making a little dot. So let's do a nice little fade in here. And then I'll be able to actually hear the heartbeat as I record, which is always good. Okay, so I let that kind of go out a little bit longer at the end to kind of count the heartbeats. Usually I'll count out about 8 heartbeat, or 2 sets of 8 heartbeats before I'll add a little fade out in my heartbeat. So I'll do something like this, and it'll sound. And then you can use your Command T to trim that track. And whoop, Definitely still want that fade in there. And then we'll delete that extra. Oh, there's some more extra back here. Delete that too. So now we've got the background music and the heartbeat here. We've got the fade in and fade out all figured out. See how this sounds. Okay, so now we're going to add in the melody line. So we'll go to track, new track, same type of recording, create. Pull that down here. And this is where if it was a little bit of a more complicated song, I'd probably use my MIDI keyboard and choose that other option. I'd choose this software instrument option if I was using the MIDI keyboard. But for this song, we'll just do a little guitar melody line here. So it'll sound like this. Okay, so don't mind my little mess up there at the end, but you get the idea. Let's play that. Okay, so it's a little quiet on my end. Hopefully you guys can hear that okay, but that is how you can add the music to your recording. Now, oops, back to the right slide now. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about some of the maybe like trickier or harder heartbeat recordings that I've done. And this is kind of just to say that any song can be made into a heartbeat recording, and some of them might seem a little bit strange at first, but pretty much in every situation that I've been like, well, why would they choose that song? There's been some really special reason for it. So I'm just going to pick my two favorite examples here of a couple of heartbeat recordings that were kind of fun to do. Let's see, ones that you guys might be kind of surprised by. Let's try this one here. Oops. All right, so this one was a young patient, and you might be kind of surprised by the song that they chose, so here it is.
the song. Okay, so there's a kind of off the wall example, but the thing about this is that that patient used to absolutely love that song and like dance around to it, and it was kind of a family song for them. So always a special meaning behind the songs. And then last one, this is a very different heartbeat recording than I've done ever before. This was a patient who is a 15-year-old, and he always liked to do the like music editing stuff on the computer with me. He was really into techno music, so we did a lot of like GarageBand loops and things like that together and making up our own songs. So this is one that I made for him, and of course, family wanted me to do stuff with techno with his heartbeat. So it turned out to be really, really cool, and wanted you guys to hear that example of something just kind of completely different. Thanks for all the comments, you guys. Making me feel really good over here. And yeah, I like the question about how did I pick these tracks. A lot of those were some of the ones that we used together when we were composing things together. And we actually ended up making one of his compositions into a heartbeat recording too, but we did it in a little bit of a different way where we used his heartbeat as like different accents throughout the song. And that was one that I worked on with him together. And when I offered the family a more typical heartbeat recording, they were like, no, we want you to make it like the music that he liked. So I just made another one with GarageBand loops. All right, let's see. Have I ever collaborated with other professional musicians, mixers, DJs to help with specialized requests? You know what? I haven't. Most of my collaboration has been with other music therapists and other coworkers of mine, but that's a really, really good idea. I feel like this is something that a lot of professionals would want to get involved in. And actually, in one of my slides coming up, I was going to talk about like the difference between what of this project really is music therapy and what could be done by another professional, and that could help us out and give us a little bit more of our time back. And I think that one thing that could be done by another professional would be, working on the music and adding the music. That piece that we do with the family and that interaction, of course, that's where our specialty comes into play. And then adding the music later back in our office, technically that probably could be done by another musician. if we're able to involve the family, that's so much better. And of course, that would need to be done by someone who is a trained music therapist, but it's a little bit of that gray area. I really like that you brought that up. And I think that it would be really interesting to collaborate with some more professionals in the music industry with this idea. So if anybody else has any thoughts on that, where to get help, where to let some other people into this project, let me know. I know that that's something that Brian is really interested in too, is finding ways to kind of free himself up to do the more interactive piece, and letting some other people do the piece that's kind of back away from the patients. So I really like that you brought that up. Thank you. Oh, and then David's going to jump in here really quick and say.
Yeah, very good point there about collaborating possibly with other people in our community. And a student, as one of the attendees today, Lauren, hello, Lauren, I see you there. Lauren, for instance, she's a first-year music therapy student, and she's going to be with me this summer as I do bereavement camps with our Toledo Symphony. I do 5 of these camps. We're going to have symphony members. I've done them a couple of years in a row now. And you're all making me think, and this couldn't work all the time, but let's say I have a heartbeat project that comes up, and during this summer I'm working with somebody like Lauren, who is a student, even a high school student, let's say, doing a senior project. If it was to work out, I could bring them to my studio and put their instrumental expertise on a heartbeat project. And that wouldn't be so special to the family, but wouldn't that be special for the student to just invigorate them and enthuse them about, moving forward with a music therapy interest and maybe career? So I just wanted to mention that. So being creative, all of this lends itself to a lot of creativity, a lot of musicianship, a lot of skills, and a lot of special interaction with community members, as we're saying, but then, of course, with the families.
Very true. I also see another question that's talking about how much time the recordings take, which is a really, really great question. I would say that it definitely varies between your first heartbeat recording to your 300th heartbeat recording. At my point now, it takes me about 20 to 30 minutes to complete a heartbeat recording where I know the song. If I have to learn the song, it might take between 30 and 40 minutes before I can complete the heartbeat recording. But if you notice in the examples that I'm providing, it doesn't take, most of those examples are only 2 minutes long-ish. I'll usually only play the first verse and then the chorus and then repeat the chorus in my songs. Bridge, nah, we don't need the bridge in there. We don't need every single verse. We don't need the ending where it repeats the first verse halfway. A lot of times I won't follow the exact structure of the song, but getting a little bit of a taste of that song into the heartbeat recording is what matters the most. It definitely takes longer when you don't know the song, though. That's a hard part, is learning the song. And one thing that David's mentioning to me over text message is that doing songs instrumentally cuts down the time a little bit. And I would say too that I've gotten quicker with figuring out melody lines on the piano from this project. So this has helped me to get faster at that. All right. So how do you manage your time between client contact and audio production? I think that the best thing to focus on is the contact between the patient or the client, and try to fit in that audio production wherever you can. For me, it's that I get to the hospital in the morning pretty early before most of my patients are awake, and so I'll spend a little bit of time on heartbeat recordings in the morning. And then I will go about patient care for the rest of the day. So that's kind of like how I work it into my day. I do it when I have a little bit of time. It's like my backup. If I, for some reason, have time in the day, which all of you know is very rare, that's my thing that I go back to. So however it works out for you, I think is the best, but trying to focus on the time where you're actually interacting with the family is the best. So if you can make it a project that you're working together with the family, there you go. You're getting the project done and you're sitting there with that family. I think that's the best way to do it. And then how do you actually give the songs to the family on a CD? Do you email to them? Really great question, Lauren. We are going to get to that. I promise. We're almost there. So I'm going to do one more showing you guys how to do some of the like more advanced techniques on here. And then we're going to get into talking about like the practicality of handing the families the heartbeat recordings.
So we're going to do a example that would be a little bit of a trickier heartbeat to edit out. So this is a heartbeat that I've recorded recently, which is a baby, and they're on a ventilator, and I believe that they're on the oscillating vent. So a vent that's particularly loud and makes it a little bit tricky to find the heartbeat and edit the heartbeat to remove as many background sounds as possible. Okay, so I'll play this for you all so you can hear what it sounds like. You'll hear the vent sound pretty fast, and then you'll hear a little bit of a heartbeat in the background. It's hard to hear though. Okay, so I'll play that one more time for you. All right, so kind of a harder one to hear. One thing that will help is by using the EQ down here to take out the frequencies that the vent is sounding out and then raise the frequencies that the heartbeat would be at. So the vent frequencies I'm thinking will be these higher ones, and then the heartbeat would be these lower ones. So I'll play it while I mess around with the EQ a little bit here. Okay, play it again. All right, so now we can hear it much better. There's a couple sounds in there that I'm thinking, okay, those are really good heartbeats. And you can hear the heartbeat beating at a steady beat, so I feel like that rhythm that you find is a good way of knowing that that is indeed the heartbeat when you keep hearing it come back that same pace. Play it one more time. Awesome. So the next part would be to find one heartbeat that is ringing through clear, that we're confident that that is the heartbeat sound. So listen to it again, and this time I'm just going to be trying to find visually which one of these sound waves is a heartbeat. Okay, there's something right around here somewhere. Ooh, I almost feel like it's like right in this area. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit. All right, let's try this again. Okay, I'm feeling like right here and right here might be heartbeats. It's hard because it moves so fast when we're doing these little short clips. So I'm going to go out a little bit farther than right around where I think my heartbeat is. So I'm going to clip there, and then how about right here, just to make sure that I actually grab it. Now I did Command T to trim those where my cursor was, and then Command C to copy. I'm going to do Command D, which is going to make me a new track with the same EQ settings down here. And then Command V will paste it there. Now I'm going to loop it out so I can kind of get a clear listen to this. And then we'll hear what it sounds like. Okay, so we have a heartbeat. We also have a lot of other sounds in there, and it's kind of fast. So let's listen to that again. Okay, so first thing that I'll do is drag this out a little bit. I'm going to get some other sounds in there. It's kind of unavoidable because I want my heartbeat to go slower. Let's try it again. that's a little closer to the original tempo of the heartbeat. So then I'm actually going to unloop. And I'm going to try to find the 2 beats, which I think is here and here, that are the heartbeat sounds. My next trick is to use the automation or the volume control here. So I clicked A, and what happens is it brings up this yellow line here. So what I'm going to do is leave the volume high just in those spots where I think the heartbeats are. So just the first beat and the second beat of the heartbeat. Everything else I'm going to drag that volume down. So you can click to make little dots that you can control this volume automation with. And I'm going to drag down over here because I think that those are vent sounds that we're seeing. This, I believe, is my heartbeat, but sometimes it's a little bit of trial and error. So I'm going to click, make 2 dots, drag this down because I think that this is another vent sound. Then I'm going to locate my second heartbeat and pull the volume back up. And drag this stuff down because I think that those are vent sounds. I usually don't drag it all the way down because in my experience I found that if I put these all the way to the end, it sounds a little too like choppy and robotic. So a little bit of background noise is actually okay in my opinion. Let's hear what that sounds like. Awesome. So I believe we've found the first and second beat of a heartbeat, and we've made it so that the heartbeat stands out amongst the vent sounds by using that automation. The trick here is that when I loop this, you actually have to turn off the automation in order to loop, but I'll show you guys here in a second. So loop, come back. The problem is that this doesn't save and duplicate as you loop. So you'd get one great heartbeat and then just silence there pretty much. So what we're going to do is unloop it. My trick for this is to actually share the song to iTunes. And pop up here. And then, so I think this is what I just shared. Yep. Okay, so it'll pop up in your iTunes and then drag it right back over to GarageBand. And what happens is we just have those 2 beats now that we can loop out without all of our background noises. And actually, usually the heartbeat comes through a lot louder after you send it to iTunes and drag it back. It's another thing that I've noticed. So the other thing is that it will be the length of anything that's silenced. So to get that same length that we had determined was good, I'm going to line it right up with my other heartbeat track, Command-T, delete that. So there we go. Silence that one and loop this one out. Now we'll see what this sounds like. Awesome. So there you go. A nice looped out clean heartbeat even with all that background noise. I've used the same automation trick when I recorded a heartbeat and people were talking in the background or the TV was on. So it's a really great trick for those harder recordings. Okay, so next I'm going to show you guys how to layer multiple heartbeats at once. So I have 2 heartbeats here, and what we're going to do is put both of these heartbeats together so that we can have them beating at the same time. So the first one, these are both already edited heartbeats, by the way. The first one sounds like this. So pretty fast, as you can tell, this was a NICU baby's heartbeat. And then I believe this is mom's heartbeat. So what we want to do is make the clip out of each one heartbeat fit together so that when we loop them, they're looping at the exact same spot. We might need to change the tempo of one of the heartbeats, and usually you do when you're going to do these layering things. So I'm going to clip out just one heartbeat from the mom. Bring that back to the beginning, and then clip out one heartbeat of the baby. Bring that back to the beginning. And as you can see here, we're definitely going to be able to fit 2 of the baby heartbeats in one of the mom heartbeat loops. So what we want to do is loop this one, and we see where that stops. So now, in order to make them loop at the same time, we have 2 options. We can make 3 of the baby heartbeats fit in one mom heartbeat if, see, we're going to run into another heartbeat there. So say that we had enough space that we weren't going to run into another one, then we could have that. So since we're going to run into another heartbeat, what I'm going to do is just make one of mom's heartbeats fit into 2 of the baby heartbeats. And then we can loop it out. Whoops. Loop this out. And a good way to check it to make sure that you've looped them or you've lined them up perfectly, because if one gets a little teensy bit off, then it'll mess up the rest, is to kind of go towards the end, zoom in, and you'll know if the trimmed spots are still matching up way back here perfectly, then you know that it's right, because even one little teensy millimeter off will really mess up towards the end. But as we can see, it's still right on, so we've put them in the right spots, and then we can listen to how it sounds. So as you can hear there, you've got your faster heartbeat on top, and then if you listen really closely, you can hear your the mom's heartbeat underneath. One thing that I'm going to do is, I think maybe this is kind of matching up here. This first beat of mom's heart is matching up with second beat of baby's heart here. So in that case, it kind of blocks the sound. You don't hear that first mom's heartbeat quite as clear since it's overlapping with the heartbeat of the baby. It almost maybe could just sound like you're just listening to the baby's heartbeat. So what I'm going to do is move it so that that doesn't happen. Now it's got its own little space to be heard. This one's going to match up here perfectly though, so this heartbeat is being a little tricky for this purpose. Whoops. Edit, undo. Love that. Okay. Let's try, where would be a good spot where it wouldn't, it's not going to overlap. Maybe like right there. It's kind of got its own spot for both. So then we're going to line it up again. Perfect. Loop it out. And it'll sound a little different, so we'll see which one we like better. Okay, so I kind of like that because you can hear the 2 different heartbeats a little bit better. It makes more of a unique sounding beat there. So what I would do normally, if I was going to do a heartbeat recording where I have 2 heartbeats that I want to play, I would have the first heartbeat play out just by itself, and then using the volume or automation tool, I would have this heartbeat fade out and the next heartbeat fade in. Something like this. And sorry, I'm doing this real quick just to show you really quick. So it might sound something like this. Then I would have the other heartbeat fade back in. So you get a little taste of each heartbeat individually, and then you get to hear both heartbeats together. And then I would start my song. So that's the layering example. We'll close out of that. And then next I will show you the pre-recorded song example. So this is how to put a heartbeat recording with a song that is already recorded. So this has happened a few times where families specifically want the heartbeat with the actual song, and I don't usually offer that as an option, but there's been a few families who have said that, you know, specifically they like this one specific version and that version's very special to us. So then I'll ask, you know, I'll say, usually I actually record the song to the beat of the heart, and that way I don't really have to change the tempo or anything about the heartbeat. Do you want me to do that, or do you want me to change the tempo of the heartbeat a little bit, which I can do, and put it with the actual song? And a few families have chosen to put it with the actual song. Okay, so what I did is I found a song, and this is a heartbeat just as an example up here. So edited heartbeat song here, and then I just Googled what's the beat per minute of Fallen for You by Colby Kelly, and happened to be 117. So here you can change the tempo to whatever you want. I think it defaults to 120, but I'm going to put it at 117. And what that does when you change the tempo up here is it changes your guidelines right here. So all we have to do in order to make this heartbeat go at the same tempo of this song is make the heartbeat match up with the guidelines up here. And as you zoom in, you get more guidelines. So I am just going to, let's see, that was the closest guideline. I think honestly it was kind of right on it already. So we just want to make sure that we're going to match up with the guidelines way down the line down here. Let's see what this sounds like. Okay, so sounds okay. Honestly, to me, with that fast beat of the song, the heartbeat's a little too slow. And also, I kind of want the heartbeat to loop on a more prominent beat than what we picked. So you can tell we've picked a segment of the beat that is one of the smaller segments. So right here, I think we're going to get like right in between 1 and 2. So let's try doing that. So that makes it a little faster. it also makes them segment on the more prominent beat, which I probably should have done in the first place. But let's give this a try. Awesome. So it's lined up with the song, but when I'm listening to it, it almost sounds like the heartbeat is like after the beat, which makes sense because we've got some dead space here before our heartbeat comes in the segment of the beat. So when you look at your music, you can kind of tell like the guitar ching 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 ching. Maybe what would be better is if our first heartbeat actually lines up with one of these guitar sounds. So I'm going to try to manipulate this a little bit. I'm going to unloop it for now and then move my heartbeat to be a little bit further towards the front of the beat, and then keeping it the same at the same spot as we had before. We'll keep it the same tempo. Loop it out again. We can visually see like where that puts the heartbeat. It almost puts it a little bit before that guitar sound. Remember, there's going to be a little bit of dead space in your song before you start. So let's just listen to this. So to me, that sounds just a little bit ahead of the beat, actually. So what I'm going to do is maybe just move it back just a teensy bit. So you can do it without unlooping. We've still got this at the same segment, but I just moved our heartbeat back in the beat a little bit. So now it's almost matching up with that guitar sound. Okay, it's bugging me just a teensy bit, so I'm going to move it just a tiny bit forward in the beat. There we go. Hopefully that'll make me happy. Yes. There we go. So now throughout the whole song, you can have that heartbeat looped, and you will have the heartbeat beating right along with the song. This is also a great way to record a patient singing along with their own heartbeat. So what you can do is have them listen to the song with headphones on and record another track of them singing right along with the song. And as they're singing along with the song, they're going to be singing at the tempo of that song, right? So then, once you have the track of them singing, you can mute this track or just delete it altogether, which is the pre-recorded song. And then you've got your patient singing, the track you just recorded, with the heartbeat that you can manipulate to be at whatever tempo you want. And there you go. You've got a patient singing, and you have the heartbeat in the background beating to the beat of their song. Pretty cool. I've also done this with original songs for patients where I've recorded myself singing their original song to a metronome and then had them sing along with just the track of me, no metronome, just me singing, and then took my voice out of it took my track out of it, and it's just their track of their original song and their heartbeat in the background. So that's a good way to do it. All right, and that is the end of the kind of special, more advanced techniques.
Okay. So presenting to the family, this is tricky because we've got about, there's a little bit of a challenge here because I usually use CDs to give to families, and now I've started emailing them too because a lot of people don't have CD players. But practically, you have to think of the way that the family is really going to be able to play it. And I think email is kind of that new way. Flash drives have kind of been completely outlawed at my hospital because of all of the bad flash drive things that have happened lately at hospitals and patient information being released and things like that. So what I'll do is I'll email that to the family, and then the advice that I would give you is try your best to present it in person or give that to somebody who is going to the visitation or the funeral to present in person to the family. It just means so much more. And then set those expectations. Tell the family exactly what they're going to hear, whether it's in a note or verbally, because families are probably going to forget. And when they, there was so much going on in the hospital when you explained it to them, when they hear it back, they might be like, oh, wait, what is this again? Or what song did I choose? Or I thought that it was going to be the recorded song with the heartbeat. So if you explain in a note, I'll usually say, first you'll hear the heartbeat, then you'll hear a little bit of my acoustic guitar music, and you will hear my version of You Are My Sunshine beating along with so-and-so's heartbeat, that type of a thing. That setting those expectations is really important. I also always include just the heartbeat along with it. So a really easy way to do that is after you're done with your song, just mute your instrumental tracks or your song tracks and send it over to iTunes again. And there you go. You have just the heartbeat, edit it out all nicely to add as another track on that CD or another file in that email. And then following up is really important. I would always recommend giving the family a call, especially if you weren't able to present it to them in person, in order to see if they were able to play that file and how they're reacting to that. That's a really important piece of it. Okay. So we're going to talk very quickly about implementing into your space because we are running a little bit low on time. Introducing this to staff is really important. Do a presentation. If you don't have an example, do what David said and play a little beat on the drum and then play along with it and tell people, this is a drum beat, but imagine this as a heartbeat. Or if you really want to tug at the heartstrings, search Cincinnati Children's Hospital heartbeat recording, and you're going to find a video of Brian doing a heartbeat recording that's really, really amazing, and you could play that. Create referral criteria because I'll tell you, you're going to get swarmed with referrals, seriously. So tell people, hey, this is only for families who are going to lose a child or lose a loved one. Or say, this is only for families that I've worked with before. If your hospital or your facility is big enough and you really know that you can't handle all of those referrals that come in. So make referral criteria, find your clinicians who are going to support this and then really band with them. Oftentimes it's the ones who already do memory making. And then another thing is make a plan for when you're not there, because there's going to be a time when you or your coworker is not there and they need a heartbeat recording for a patient. And so what I did, and what one of your handouts is I made a standard work so that child life specialists and also nurses can record a heartbeat for me if I'm not there. And, that's never preferred because I would always want to meet with the family when I'm recording the heartbeat and build that rapport with them. But if it needs to happen, then I will at least have that heartbeat that I could still create the project for the family. Okay, and then a quick mention of just self-care. In my situation, I'm the only now I have another coworker who works part-time, but we're the only music therapists who work throughout the entire hospital. So we get called for every single passing at our hospital, and we are there present for every single one of those. Nurses, they're not there for every single passing. Doctors aren't there for every single passing. Social workers aren't there for every single passing, but we're there for every single one. And I have some stories that, things come up when you're doing this type of a work. And so really acknowledge that before you jump into this, have those strategies in place to take care of yourself, because this type of a thing, it really does bring some of those up, some of those hard things up. Okay. So we had a question about advice for in utero recordings. So I actually have an in utero heartbeat recorder. It's called Angel Sounds. So you can look that up. It's only like $30 actually, and you can record a heartbeat of a mom who's pregnant, of the baby. Of course, it does sound more like an ultrasound. So that heartbeat sounds very, very different. But if you look up Angel Sounds in utero recorders, you'll find that, and it'll actually plug right into the computer so you can record it, and then you can make a heartbeat out of that. So really good question. Okay, we don't really have time to play these for you, but just I wanted to end on a more happy note than self-care and this being really, really hard on us. So this can also be used for celebrations. I mentioned the patient who was having heart surgery. We had twins that left the hospital and they wanted the song We Are Family by Sister Sledge. So it was like, we are family, and it had both of their heartbeats together. I also record mothers' heartbeats to play for babies. So that's called maternal sound simulation. So I definitely do that a lot of times. That's another way to use your heartbeat recordings. And then songwriting. I had a patient who was a teenager, wanted to write a song, but she was like, I don't know what I want to write a song about. And so we ended up recording her heartbeat. And I was like, well, what if we use this as some inspiration? And she immediately said, oh, we could sing about what's in my heart. And I'm like, perfect. That's so great. So we ended up using her heartbeat as like the bass beat. And then she sang over it her own original song. It was totally great. So anyways, I'm going to let David jump in because he wants to talk. And then we have a little post test for you guys to take. But thank you so much for being awesome listeners today and for dealing with all of our technical issues. But here is David, I think.
Am I on? Am I on? Ish? Okay. There I am. It took a little time lapse. Thanks, Bridget. I was taking notes to make sure I'm keeping up with a lot of things, aspects of your presentation that I haven't utilized yet. So really a great presentation. So thank you for your preparation and your expertise and time. Everybody, I'd just like to thank you on behalf of Ashley and Matt Liotta. Again, they're behind the scenes doing all this tech stuff for Bridget and I, and anyway, that makes my head swim. I'm more into doing music and music therapy and those kind of things. So I just want to thank them. And thank Bridget again. And I wanted to mention that we're just getting this site going, the Creative Clinician, and actually Bridget's presentation fits so nicely into our little mission of trying to do creative things in our work and have some creative education offerings. And one of the things that we also have on the site is using a looper. I'm doing that with the symphony, and I do it with my hospital work using a mic looper. That's something on our site. And I'm going to be doing an upcoming presentation about improvisation, and I'm going to be talking about songwriting, those kind of things. And Bridget and I, and even Ashley, we're going to be coming up with some 1-hour topics that we can put together as group offerings, umbrella offerings for continuing ed. So we have a lot of different things like that. And also something we've come up with is we're going to be talking to experienced music therapists who have a lot of wisdom from over the years. I'm going to be doing some interviews with some people that I think you'll get a lot of great information from. So keep abreast of all that. And one of the big, focus of our site initially were the guitar courses that I've done. And I have a comprehensive guitar course from rhythm and accompaniment and chords and harmony, tips, all those kind of things. And as you see with Bridget and Brian's talent using guitar, I use guitar, but keyboards, get instruction so you can become competent on instruments that you want to use in your work or that you do use, whether it's guitar or keyboard or those kind of things. Because the kind of work that we do as music therapists, we have full reign to be as creative and musical as we want, and we're only going to get more competent by us really focusing on this. So I encourage you to join our site and other people's information to really get competent and use your musicianship skills. And those are the things that really set us apart from other disciplines and other clinicians. So that is it for me. And please don't hesitate to give us other topics, suggestions that you'd like to see us tackle here in the Creative Clinician. So once again, thanks to Ashley and Matt and to Bridget. And we're going to turn you loose to get to that post test. So once again, I'm David Patano, and thanks again for visiting us today in Creative Clinician and with Heartbeat Music. And we'll see you again.